All right, welcome back to Snackcast, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
So today we are wrapping up our book review.
Man, dear.
I know, right? The Great Cholesterol Myth by Johnny Bowden and Steven Sinatra.
Fantastic read.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So yesterday, you came up with the idea of put together the 5 greatest things we've learned, taken out of the book, that I guess that we're going to leave with. So I'm actually quite proud of mine in a way. Proud may not be the right adjective, but it was a good exercise. Maybe put it that way.
Okay.
So
what's Latin for jump right in?
It's not carpe
Diem.
All right.
Why don't you start? Number 1, and then we'll alternate.
Probably the biggest thing that I think I learned for my entire life, cholesterol has been the bad guy. And not only learning that it's actually healthy in nature, but kind of learning how critically healthy it is. That they have a chapter in the book titled "Cholesterol is Harmless," and I would push way beyond that it's not only harmless, it is unbelievably healthy, needed. And the bad part, of course, is once it's become damaged, oxidized, inflamed, what have you. The point, 25% of the brain is composed of cholesterol.
Yeah, and when you look back at things like Alzheimer's and, are trying to reduce the number of cholesterol, why do we have extreme incidences of Alzheimer's and some of these other neurological function problems that are starting to go on now? And then,
it helps
again,
us.
Not pointing back at statins, but maybe that's a good looking point for science to go. There's a weird connection.
Yeah, I just grabbed a few of the things it does that no one has ever, in my lifetime with working with any doctor, mentioned: synthesizing the bile acids, synthesizing vitamin D, hormone production, immune system function. So that for me was the number one, is that not only is it not bad for you, nor is it harmless, it's good for you.
Yeah, my number 1 was similar, not exactly is not as deep as yours, was really total cholesterol doesn't matter. I liked the analogy of equating the number of boats in the water. That was good. Also, the one that hit me was when they said, imagine the total cholesterol being like a forest. If the forest is healthy, there's no problem. If the forest is dry, you got an issue.
Yeah, that was a good analogy.
Yep.
Yeah, if it's pruned and the dead branches are dragged out and
right, if it's taken care of, you don't have a problem.
All right, number 2. What's your number 2?
LDL, very similar maybe in your overall, like LDL has been made out to be the bad guy. LDL particles aren't the problem. Ending up in the wrong place and getting oxidative stress and deformed is the problem.
Yep.
So everybody says, oh, good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. And they really do a great job, I think, in the book of pointing out there's so much more to cholesterol than what science. The science is already starting to come out on it, but there's so much more to this than good and bad cholesterol. I think that was really. I agree. I kind of figured that was the case, but I didn't really understand it.
I had that on my list, and I thought it's almost too obvious, right? And I figured you would probably.
Oh, thanks. Dumb it down for the dumb guy over here.
I didn't mean it that way. I figured we would.
I'll leave the easy stuff to the guy who's not real deep.
That's not what I meant. I just said I knew that we would likely cover that.
All right. So, what's your number 2?
My number 2, dietary cholesterol. I remember decades ago when I was in insurance and I was heavier than I should have been. I went to the doctor and he said, hey, your cholesterol's high. Red flag number 1. He wanted to put me on a statin, and I was like, can I do this myself first? Right.
I remember you had that insight to not want to take medicine.
Well, I knew I was eating like crap, right? I mean, it was fairly obvious. I was
Right.
eating like country fried steak every day.
Is that bad?
So anyways, his advice was to quit eating cholesterol. Don't eat any more eggs. And I look back on that now, and at the time I believed him.
Right.
I quit eating eggs. And what did I replace it with? Packaged crap. I would look at a bag of Lay's chips and go, oh, 0 cholesterol.
Right.
That's a healthy choice over eggs. And so anyways, that was the idea, cholesterol-free foods and stuff. In large part, as far as your HDL, LDL go, it's not driven by dietary.
Absolutely.
Of course, poor diet can affect triglycerides, can harden the LDL particles. Of course, diet plays a role, but it's not the consumption of cholesterol in foods.
Right. My number 3 was inflammation can be good. Right?
That's a good one.
We hear that inflammation is bad. And when it's bad, it's because you are in a state of in a chronic state of something's wrong, right? Same thing with a fever. Everybody, we talk about fevers and, my child has a fever of 101. That's not a fever. That's they don't feel good. That's their body's way of heating up so it can kill off the bad bacteria and the bad germs, and it's doing its job. And, here we want as humans to stop the pain, and we want to stop the bad feelings, and rather than going, a little bit of inflammation is a good thing.
Yeah.
Little fever is a good thing.
I'm withholding commentary because you're speaking to one of my things. So
Okay. So you're up next. What's your number 3?
Mine. So I'm going to hit statins. I suspected that they were not good for you. And when you look at the brain consumption of cholesterol, the hormones, the bile acids, all the other things, but specifically, it's the side effects of the statins. I think statins are bad because I think trying to drive down total cholesterol is a false premise. But the side effects of what they do when you're on them, from blocking your sex hormones, depleting your stores of CoQ10, the memory, thinking, and dementia issues that they bring up in the book, your serotonin receptors, the link to cancer, reduced glucose tolerance. It's like the list goes on and on of the side effects.
The cure is worse than the disease.
Yeah. Hydra. You said it before.
Right.
Yeah. So for me, it was understanding those side effects, not just how statins can possibly not be beneficial, but the side effects of taking them are worse than the proposed solution.
Very good.
So, all right, number 4.
All about insulin resistance. I think that I had a poor understanding of what you hear the term insulin resistance all the time, and you don't have a really good grasp of what that means. You had a kid with diabetes, so you've had 18 years to understand what is insulin and what is insulin resistance. Really that it's okay for the blood sugar to be in a certain range, and then it's the job of insulin to take the blood sugar out and to take the glucose out and deposit it in the places that it needs to go, right? And insulin resistance is that process of when the places that it needs to go say, we've had enough, we're not taking that crap anymore. And it's funny because insulin resistance affects primarily muscles, right? Guess what the heart is? Heart's a muscle.
The most metabolically active.
When you think about it in that perspective, it's the number 1 muscle, right? When you think about that, your muscles are essentially tapping out of receiving any more glucose. They're saying,
we don't want it.
We don't want it.
Can't use it.
Right. You start to get a good grasp for what insulin resistance really is.
Yep, that's a good one. My 4th one was processed foods. I always knew they probably weren't the best for you, but I didn't really understand why. And you remember the brown rice, white rice, they have different glycemic loads, but once you grind them up, they both have the same glycemic load. So the refined sugars, the refined carbohydrates, and the seed oils and the omega-6s. So I told you I was going to circle back to the inflammation. If y'all recall, in the book, they explained the proper ratio between omega-3s and 6s, and 3s are anti-inflammatory and 6s are inflammatory. And it's not that that's unhealthy. What's unhealthy is when we consume way too many omega-6s compared to the 3s. Again, picking on Lay's potato chips, I went to the website and looked at the ingredients. There's only 3 ingredients, right? Potatoes, oil, salt. But in parentheses, there were 4 oils named: canola, sunflower, soybean, and I'm drawing blank on the other one, but all of them omega-6 oils. So, kind of, I connected the dots of why calorie counting may help you lose weight. But unless you're eating whole foods, it's not a healthy alternative. You're consuming a ton of omega-6.
And I think they alluded to that in the book, is that your biometrics will actually, if you're losing weight and you're doing it in an unhealthy fashion, your biometrics will improve only slightly, and that's only a temporary condition. They will get worse again once your weight loss stops.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yep.
Number 5 for me was probably the grand slam. HDL to triglyceride ratio seems to be the absolute best, cheap, and current diagnostic tool we have now to paint a picture of future insulin resistance. Meaning, you can get a generic blood test and you can calculate your own HDL to triglyceride
Calculate?
ratio. Do what?
Calculate?
Calculate your own HDL to triglyceride ratio. You can do that right now, and that's very cheap. There's the other ones. There's the MMRs. There's what I think I said it right. MMRs. There's a few others that are more in depth. But if you want a very cheap way of understanding, am I down the path to insulin resistance, the HDL to triglyceride ratio is it.
Yep. That's a good one. In fact, it's probably one I'll use the rest of my life, is understanding what that ratio is.
Yep.
To your point, because it's, if you have a regular doctor, they're checking for it every year, maybe twice a year already. So you can just pull out your last labs and see what your ratio is. And for the viewer, it was under 2.0 is ideal, if I recall. 3.0 is satisfactory. Above 3, you need to start considering
options.
Yeah. So my last one, I listed it at the end, but not due to importance, kind of like you. I think the thing that I've taken away from this book, I don't even want to say the most, but it's made me angry. The brainwashing, the complicit doctors, the greed of the big pharma companies to be not just over prescribing, but prescribing this drug to anyone and everyone without a second's hesitation as to what it might be doing. It's disheartening to the point of anger, that the profits are all that matter. And I don't understand how a doctor doesn't take a second glance handing out these drugs.
I agree.
I
agree. So I'm going to surprise you. I did a 6th one.
Oh.
It's not really 6. It's really just the stat. 65%, this is how I, thought about ending this, right? 65% of all Americans over 45 are pre-diabetic. If you think we have problems now with COVID and problems with viruses and illness and everything else, we, again, very somber and negative, we are scratching the surface of where we'll be in 20 years.
Yeah.
We are ill, and it's all due to our food.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
No.
By the way, I made homemade potato chips last night.
Did you? In lard?
Yeah, beef tallow.
Or sorry,
Sea salt.
tallow.
Sliced them very thin. They were I had like 3 or 4. The rest of the family just.
They are one of my favorite foods. I've mentioned multiple times on this that I would rather have a bag of jalapeno kettle chips than almost anything on the planet. If I ever get the electric chair, it's going to be a big ribeye and about 4 bags of those chips. And that's it.
That's it.
Right?
You might. You keep talking about doctors that way. It might. It might.
Yeah, right? Right?
All right.
So,
great book. We highly recommended.
Yep. One last look. There it is. We got it off of Amazon. Did the audiobook as well to kind of help, with the absorption. But questions, comments, concerns, hit us at snackcast@yes.fit.
Stay moving.
See ya.